Hello and welcome to the continuation of the Disney Era's Ranked mini-series. I'm setting out to order Walt Disney Animation Studios movies from my least to most favorite separated by eras. So far we've covered the Golden Age and the Wartime era, so if you missed those you might want to go check them out first. I'll have the videos linked in the description down below. This is the third episode of the series where we'll be covering the next section of movies known as the Silver Age. Let's get into it. The Silver Age, sometimes referred to as the Restoration Era, spans from 1950 to 1967 and includes films 12 to 19 from Walt Disney Animation Studios. As World War II came to an end and the world began to shift back to a state of normalcy, things were looking a lot brighter for the studio. No longer strapped for money and workers, the transition back to full-length features was made, and Disney went on to create some of their best and most beloved films ever. The Silver Age is unquestionably one of Disney's strongest eras, if not the strongest, and I'm really excited to talk about it in this video. Let's start the list. Number 8. This is easily my least favorite film of the Silver Age. I find it plotless and I just don't feel any connection to it. Merlin knows he's supposed to help Arthur and so he appoints himself Arthur's tutor. They turn into various animals, Merlin has a showdown with Madame Mim where he outsmarts her, and then Arthur randomly pulls the sword out of the stone at the end because, well, he needs a sword. Are you serious? There's not a clear connection between all of these events for me. The best I can come up with is that it's meant to be a series of small lessons from Merlin to Arthur in order to make him an educated and well-rounded king in the future. But that still seems disjointed and unnecessary, especially the disturbing part with the girl squirrel, because what the f was the point of that? Arthur is a bit of an underdog, and it's nice to see him succeed, but I can't say the ending feels very satisfying because it comes completely out of left field. It doesn't feel like the ending the movie was building to because it never felt like the movie was building to anything. The characters don't do it for me either. Arthur is fine, but I think that Merlin comes off as cranky and his views on education veer into elitist territory. He drones on about how if you don't have a proper education, you'll amount to nothing in life. I'll admit that he does impart some good messages to Arthur, but those seem awfully scattered. The grumpiness works on Archimedes the Owl, however. Madame Mim is a bit of a pathetic villain who is barely present. And the rest of the characters are forgettable. The songs are also forgettable, which is surprising since they're done by the Sherman Brothers. It was their first time writing for an animated Disney movie, so we'll give them a break. The animation isn't all that either. Disney went a little over the top budget-wise when they made Sleeping Beauty, so in order to save money, Xeroxing was introduced in the 60s. Animation used to be transferred to cells by hand, which was time-consuming and expensive, and Xeroxing allowed this process to be done by photocopy machine. It was a necessary evil because while the animation quality suffered, Xeroxing helped the studio stay afloat for a time. I still hate those rough, scratchy black lines though, and they're present in The Sword in the Stone. There's still some quality work done by animators and lots of the backgrounds are nice, it's just not the best overall. It's hard for me to get invested in this movie due to the lack of stakes or a clear plot, and where I'd normally latch on to the music, animation, or characters to make up for that, I'm also left wanting in those areas. I don't have any childhood nostalgia for this movie as it wasn't part of my family's VHS collection growing up, and I saw it for the first time as an adult, so that doesn't help either. I should probably stop talking about this movie now cause I'll just keep ripping on it, but yeah. Definitely one of my least favorite Disney movies. Number 7. I believe this would be considered quite low to rank The Jungle Book for most people. I can see how this movie might be very important, even childhood defining for some, but I just didn't have that experience. The first time I watched The Jungle Book, I was still pretty young, but like The Sword in the Stone, we never owned it, so I never really rewatched it much. The Jungle Book is a simple story. Mowgli is a human raised by wolves in the Indian forest, but when the tiger Shere Khan poses a danger to Mowgli's life, Bagheera decides that Mowgli needs to be brought to the man village to be with the other humans for his own safety. It's a solid narrative in that we know what the point is and where the story is going, but getting there is not too rigid of a process. Mowgli needs to get to the man village, but on the way, he's sort of free to roam and wander and meet new characters. I like most of the animals that he encounters, especially Kaa and Baloo, although these two couldn't be more opposite. Kaa tries to manipulate Mowgli, while the harmless Baloo becomes a trusted companion. The connection between Mowgli, Baloo, and Bagheera is authentic and sincere, and I think the biggest strength of the movie. Bagheera comes off like the stern parent, while Baloo is the fun-loving one, but they both only want what's best for Mowgli in the end. It's pretty tough watching Mowgli feel betrayed, as Baloo has to tell him he should go to the Man Village. After the showdown with Shere Khan, Baloo changes his mind and says that nothing will come between him and Mowgli again. And ironically, it's at that moment that Mowgli hears the singing of the human girl and is immediately entranced. So the ending of the Jungle Book is something that I've sort of struggled with in the past. When I was younger, I didn't like that Mowgli went to the Man Village. So naturally, when I saw the 2016 live-action Jungle Book where Mowgli gets to stay in the jungle, I was pleased with that. But upon reflection, I don't think that change is a good thing. Of course, it's bittersweet to watch Mowgli leave the jungle and his friends, but the story has built to Mowgli learning to have the maturity to accept where he belongs, and without this, it all seems a little aimless. I know it feels better for Mowgli to stay in the jungle, but that discomfort some of us feel watching the ending is actually demonstrating the point. Growing up and maturing usually doesn't feel the best. We often want to do the opposite of what we should, but life will be better for it in the end. What I will complain about is the way Mowgli was enticed to go to the village. I can understand Mowgli being captivated by a pretty young girl, especially since he's never seen one before, but did they have to make her so purposefully sensual? It makes the scene so awkward to watch, and it makes the ending even harder to accept. Her song kinda slaps though. Definitely a feminist anthem. I said that the Sherman Brothers songs in The Sword in the Stone were lackluster, but that is not the case here. The Jungle Book soundtrack isn't my personal favorite or anything, but this collection of songs is so iconic. The Bare Necessities and I Wanna Be Like You are standouts for sure, and I think the score in this movie is impeccable. Right from the beginning, it has an eerie, mystical, entrancing quality that's perfectly fitting for the story in the depths of the jungle. You can tell this movie is part of the Xerox phase, but the design of the characters is enough to overcome the scratchiness in their execution most of the time. The backgrounds, however, are very high quality, and they majorly help in cultivating the beautiful, enchanting atmosphere for this story to unfold in. The only real knock I have for the Jungle Book is that it can sometimes feel monotonous as Mowgli encounters a seemingly endless string of animals in the jungle, but each new character is distinct and entertaining enough to keep any real boredom at bay. So while it's not one of my favorite Disney movies, I don't have any real issues with it. It's just not one that grips me personally. Number 6. What a funny concept for a movie. There's just tons of dogs. Who's gonna complain about that? I think I'll start by talking about the one, the only, Cruella de Vil. She's such a perfect villain in all aspects. She's deplorable for not only wanting to skin dogs for fashion, but for stealing them in order to do it. Double whammy. She also has an incredible character design. She's so skinny and bony that she almost looks like a walking skeleton draped in her huge fur coat. Betty Lou Gerson brings Cruella to life with a fantastically memorable voice performance. And if all that wasn't enough, she has an awesome car and even has her own song. Cruella is certainly my favorite part of watching 101 Dalmatians. At the heart of this movie is a message of love for animals and an emphasis on the value of all life. The idea that a living thing might be killed for such greedy and superficial reasons as fashion and vanity is more than frowned upon. Cruella is named after the devil, after all. There's also a really nice theme of coming together to help those in danger. The Twilight Bark sequence is one of my favorites in the movie, and in this scene, dozens of dogs across the land do their part to help a family in need. Other than Cruella, there aren't too many notable characters in 101 Dalmatians, but a standout for me is Sergeant Tibbs the cat. He does the most trying to save the puppies, and even puts his life on the line. I really admire his courage and his heart. You might even find him in this video I did recently. I like how Pongo and Perdita are reflections of their owners Roger and Anita, and I enjoy that while there isn't time to flesh out the personalities of 15 puppies, they manage to make most of them somewhat distinct. Rolly needs to get his act together though.
I'm hungry. I'm hungry.
Hey, Horace, there they go.
This movie was the initial shift to the Xeroxing process, and if you watch the Disney canon in order, the drop-off of the animation quality between Sleeping Beauty and this one is a little shocking to say the least.
Oh my god.
I already explained that this was out of necessity, but it still factors into my overall enjoyment of the movie. The animators clearly tried their best to make it work, and I appreciate that. There's a unique stylized look to the backgrounds in this film, and I like the monochromatic color palettes utilized in many of the settings. The plot really starts to grip me once the puppies are escaping.
Puppies!
The tension is so thick, and the looming fear of them being caught keeps my attention invested. I've always loved the part when they roll in the soot. The climax is intense and exciting, with Cruella going absolutely off the rails, and there's a wholesome happy ending. This is a perfect middle ground Disney movie for me. The animation isn't amazing, and some parts can drag, but the strength of the plot and its villain leave me feeling positive overall about the film. And how about this absolute gift of a commercial jingle?
You can be a champion too if you eat canine crunchies.
Number 5. This is one of the quintessential Disney movies. The story of the boy who never grew up is a timeless classic, and the fact that it's number 5 on this ranking should tell you just how strong the Silver Age is. If I'm being honest though, Peter Pan is a mixed bag for me. I adore the beginning portion of this movie where the children are in the nursery. It's such a simple yet lovely setting that serves as the origin of imagination and possibility. The Second Star to the Right and You Can Fly are both songs featured near the beginning, and they add so much to the magical tone being set. Those two songs can't be done justice by my words, but they just sound like Disney, and I love what they bring to the film. It's once we get to Neverland that I start to become less invested in the movie, which seems backwards. Neverland is a fantastical, beautiful setting, but where the story feels like it should be gaining momentum and excitement, I start to check out. The inhabitants of Neverland, the pirates, the mermaids, and the Lost Boys, are all annoying and unlikable to me, and throw Peter in that category as well. I know that he's supposed to be immature, he never grew up after all, but he's such a little punk most of the time. Tinkerbell is in a league of her own when it comes to being a twat, but in her case, I'm all for it, because it's wildly entertaining and she owns it completely.
Are you guilty or not guilty?
I am a guilty little woman.
Captain Hook, while being immaculately designed, is a mediocre villain to me. Neverland is for children, so I can see why they made him more humorous than truly menacing, but his antics can grow a little stale for me. Wendy is a homie though. We like Wendy. We know that many of Disney's past works include some rather unsavory depictions of different races and cultures, and Peter Pan is a key perpetrator of this. The way that the natives in Neverland are portrayed is just drenched in obtuse stereotypes and insensitivity. The song What Makes the Red Man Red continues to shock me in its blatant racism. I know it's only one small part of the movie, but it leaves a pretty big stain for me. Moving on to more positive things, while I don't always love the execution, I resonate deeply with some of the core themes in Peter Pan, namely not wanting to grow up. Wendy and her brothers are enamored by the idea of Peter Pan, and going to Neverland is a dream come true. Until it's not. In Neverland, Wendy sees the realities of staying stunted in childhood, and she doesn't end up enjoying the experience like she thought she would. Peter's narcissism turns her off, and she discovers that she longs for something more. Ultimately, Wendy learns that she needs to return home with her brothers, and she accepts that she needs to grow up, which is symbolized by her moving out of the nursery. This, like The Jungle Book, is a bittersweet ending to a story about maturity. It's not the ending we thought we wanted, but it's the ending we needed. Peter Pan has its flaws, but the strength of the theme saves it for me, not to mention the iconic music and the stunning animation. The characters are memorable, the story is timeless, and it will forever remain one of the most important and beloved movies from Walt Disney Animation. Number 4. This movie is about Alice's journey through Wonderland after she follows the White Rabbit down the rabbit hole. It's a peculiar story, and I often have trouble pinpointing its purpose. Even so, it's sort of enjoyable to be swept away into a wacky world of nonsense devoid of rules. It's what Alice wishes for in the beginning of the movie, a world of her own. But that infamous saying comes to mind, be careful what you wish for. At first, Wonderland is a welcome escape from Alice's mundane lesson from her really cool sister. But as she ventures deeper and deeper, she becomes increasingly more frustrated with the nonsensical nature of things. The movie is mostly a random string of events, but that's exactly what it's supposed to be, and it's all tied together through Wonderland. I see similarities to both Peter Pan and The Jungle Book here. Alice venturing through Wonderland and meeting numerous kooky characters reminds me of Mowgli's trek through the jungle, and Wonderland itself is not too unlike Neverland. These stories are all about kids who wish to avoid maturity and responsibility, but through their experiences, they not only learn that they must accept these things, they actually crave them in the end. Wonderland puts Alice through emotional warfare at times, and by the end, she is more than done with her fantasies. Real life seems so much sweeter after what she's been through. I don't think the message here is not to use your imagination or to dream, but it's more of a reminder that things might not be as bad in reality as we make them out to be. There are lots of things to appreciate. Alice never would have learned this without the risk she took following the White Rabbit down to Wonderland. The collection of characters that Alice comes across in the movie is quite something. I enjoy some more than others. Tweedledee and Tweedledum are pretty annoying, and the Walrus in the Carpenter story feels like a rejected short from a package film. Plus, the ending makes me sad. The Cheshire Cat is an absolute Disney icon, and I enjoy trying to gauge his intentions towards Alice. The Mad Tea Party is definitely a noteworthy scene, and includes one of the movie's most important characters, the Mad Hatter. And of course, there's the Queen of Hearts. The scenes featuring her are a strong part of the movie as they provide a fun and intense climax. It's something I'm sure Alice was glad to wake up from. For having so much music, there are only 2 songs from Alice in Wonderland that I really like, being All in the Golden Afternoon and the Unbirthday song. I guess 'Twas Brillig is good too. The animation quality here is prime. It's just what you envision when you think of classic Disney animation. Due to the nature of the story, I'm sure it was fun for animators to get more creative than usual with the settings, character designs, and color. That's something that I always associate with Alice in Wonderland. Lots of bright colors. On the whole, I have to admit that I probably enjoy the idea of Alice in Wonderland more than the reality of watching it, but that's not the knock on the movie that it sounds like. Wonderland and its characters have sort of transcended the movie and taken on a larger life of their own. They're so integrated into the pop culture landscape in places like Disneyland that I just enjoy being around the atmosphere they've helped create. I think that's a pretty special achievement from Disney, and it's not to say that I don't like watching the movie. It is ranked 4th after all. Ultimately, Alice in Wonderland is a fun escape from reality into a colorful and trippy world. Wonderland provides some great memorable times, but it can also get frustrating and out of hand. In the end, it makes Alice long for her own life and reminds her of what she values and appreciates about the real world. And I guess that was the point all along. Number 3. Oh, sweet Cindy. She came to save us from package film hell, and for that, we should be eternally grateful. What a return to form for Disney. This wasn't just the studio's return to single narrative films, but a return to the princess fairy tale, and they did so with flying colors. Cinderella is a very simple and classic story, but Disney managed to inject a substantial amount of humor and heart into it. I find that's an underrated strength of Cinderella. It's often quite funny. Cinderella herself is basically the most lovely person alive. She's so resilient and gracious in the face of being horribly mistreated. Her likability paired with the adversity she faces makes her the perfect heroine to root for, and it makes Lady Tremaine the perfect villain. The evil stepmother is an interesting role because she has no real status or magic powers to threaten Cinderella with. She merely has a maternal role in her life and has chosen to make it miserable. Lady Tremaine's ordinariness makes her cruelness all the more terrifying, with the help of Eleanor Audley's voice, and it makes the humor of the ugly stepsisters that much more welcome. Cinderella as a character is often criticized for being boring, and while I won't pretend like she's got the most personality in the world, she has more than people give her credit for. I think she has a good sense of humor.
Maybe I should interrupt the music lesson.
While I enjoy the antics of Lucifer and the mice, I think there's too much focus on them throughout the movie. The mice are so sweet though. It always touches me to see the efforts they took to repair Cinderella's dress. It makes it that much worse when the dress gets ripped to shreds. Full stop, that is one of the hardest scenes to watch in cinematic history. But the fairy godmother arrives and Cindy gets the night of her life at the ball. It's what she deserves. And doesn't she look spectacular? This character and costume design is something else. On the topic of animation, it doesn't get much better than this. I'll give a warning now that if you already think I talk about animation too much,
Brace yourselves!
for these top 3 entries, because Disney animation has never been better than this. Cinderella looks immaculate at all times. I'm in love with the settings, character designs, and colors. The backgrounds are so skillfully made, brimming with impressive details, and the characters look clean and crisp. I think my favorite thing about the animation in Cinderella is the color palettes used. There's a lot of emphasis on shades of blue throughout the film, notably when Cinderella arrives at the castle. I think this is my favorite shot in all of Disney animation. Stunning, gorgeous, immaculate, lovely, I'll stop it there and spare you. How about the music? The score is elegant and fitting, and the songs are some of Disney's best. A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes is probably the most legendary Disney song behind When You Wish Upon a Star, and for good reason. It has the most lovely melody and sentiment. My favorite song from Cinderella is So This Is Love. It's a transfixingly romantic and dreamy tune, and it's a huge moment for our leading lady. Cinderella is the story of a mistreated underdog surviving off the goodness in her heart, who triumphs over her oppressors in the most satisfactory way. Name a more gratifying moment than this.
I have the other slipper.
Get wrecked, bitch.
Between the comfort that this story brings, the flawless execution, and its very important place in the canon, I'm so happy that Cinderella exists, and it's a film I'll return to time and time again. Number 2. The perfect word to encompass this movie is lovely. It's largely an original story, which was not the norm for Disney at the time. It's a simple plot, but I find a lot of delight in that. This movie is a love story between Lady and Tramp, but it's also about the relationships between dogs and people, and the adjustments and transitions that they go through when life changes. The idea to show the film mostly from the dog's perspective was genius. The human characters are usually only seen from the knees down, and it really grounds you in the perspective of our canine friends. I enjoy the characters in this movie, especially our leading lady, Lady. Her character design is among my favorites in all of Disney animation, and she looks painfully cute as a baby. I want to punch her. Tramp is a great foil for her, as they have vastly different experiences with humans. I think Disney walked the line perfectly between cocky and likable for his personality. Lady and Tramp help to teach and heal each other through their different pasts and time spent together. I like Lady's friends Jock and Trusty. They're very sweet and protective of her. Peg is a full-blown icon who steals the show whenever she's on screen. And Aunt Sarah is the devil incarnate. Forget Cruella de Vil. This is Satan. Her cats suck too, but they're seen as problematic on a whole other level.
Racism.
The animation throughout this entire film is so good.
Wait.
That's not a powerful enough adjective. It's impeccable. Every shot looks so carefully and lovingly created, and the backgrounds have such depth and warmth to them that I feel like I'm there. The characters are fabulously designed and extremely clean. I enjoy that they gave the dogs eyebrows so they could be more expressive. The quaint setting in the movie is actually said to be inspired by Walt Disney's hometown of Marceline, Missouri, which was also a partial inspiration of Main Street in Disneyland. So that would explain why I enjoy spending time in this world so much. The music is also wonderful. The Bella Notte scene is arguably one of the most iconic in all of Disney animation. I mean, it's dogs eating spaghetti. And He's a Tramp is Peg's moment to shine. I really like the way they implemented the other dogs for the background vocals. I can see how Lady and the Tramp might be critiqued for not having a ton going on, but that's actually a strength for me. The plot favors ordinary events over big pivotal plot points, and yet I'm totally invested. I'm completely content to watch these dogs navigate their lives and the confusing behaviors of humans for the duration of the film. It's impressive to me that Disney was able to do so much with seemingly so little. There's even a theme regarding classism woven in, which is well done, but also amusing seen through the eyes of a dog. Lady's owners live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood, so she's seen as a privileged little rich dog from Tramp's less fortunate perspective. Luckily for him, he gets to join in on the domestic suburban fantasy in the end. Lady and the Tramp has several themes woven into its fabric, including life changes, the passage of time, and class structure, but at the end of the day, I believe it to be a love letter to dogs. Man's best friend has rarely been more lovingly showcased than in Lady and the Tramp, and it's a special pleasure to watch this film every time. Number 1. I have to start with the glaringly obvious. Visually, Sleeping Beauty is nothing short of a masterpiece. It's easily the most gorgeous work of animation that has ever come out of the studio, and I believe that's a fact. It's probably the most beautiful piece of animation in existence. It looks so good that Disney blew their budget on making it and had to resort to Xeroxing for their next movie. I think it was worth it. Every single frame in Sleeping Beauty is perfect. You can zoom way into the background to the tiniest tree branch and it looks flawless. Every rock and every twig have been so carefully placed with an effort and an attention to detail that is astonishing. When I watch the movie, I often catch myself staring at the backgrounds rather than the action in the foreground, and it's captivating. We have Ivan Earl to thank for this. He was responsible for the styling, backgrounds, and colors used in the film. The characters are stunners as well, and none more than the title character. Aurora might only say 18 lines and then pass out, but she's gonna look damn fine doing it. Best hair of any Disney princess. Sorry, Punzi. Her Briar Rose look is one of my favorite looks ever, and I particularly love the implementation of black into her and Philip's outfits. Then there's Maleficent. Everybody knows. Everybody already knows that she's the baddest one there is. Miss Girl didn't get invited to the party? Okay, guess I'll curse the baby, hee. She's pure evil. She's evil for the sake of being evil. That's why I didn't like the attempt to make her sympathetic in the Maleficent movie.
Catwoman.
That's not what she's about. Maleficent is the forces of evil personified.
And all the powers of hell!
But the way she conducts herself is understated. She's regal and elegant and wouldn't be nearly as scary if she went around yelling at everyone. She's calm, she speaks at an even level, and she walks slowly. These are the reasons she used to give me nightmares. And then when she does let out an intense emotion, it has so much more potency. When she finds out her minions have been looking for a baby all these years, her laugh is so terrifyingly unhinged.
Oh! Fools! Idiots! Imbeciles!
Eleanor Audley puts on one of the best voice performances of all time here. Maleficent makes Sleeping Beauty's climax one of the best and most intense from Disney. The imagery of the castle being shrouded in thorns is amazing. And of course, Dragon Maleficent is awesome. I love that they decided to make the fire green. The score in the movie is largely based on Tchaikovsky's Sleeping Beauty ballet. It blends in with all the other elements at play here so well. My favorite moment is when Aurora is put under Maleficent's spell and we get that sinister, punchy motif. There aren't as many notable songs in Sleeping Beauty as some other Disney movies, but Once Upon a Dream is a gorgeous track that has solidified itself as one of the studio's staples. I'm a big fan of I Wonder as well. Mary Costa certainly has a voice that deserves to be shown off. If there is a flaw with Sleeping Beauty, it would be in regards to the plot and pacing. There are long stretches of the three fairies going about their business, and while it's mostly enjoyable to watch them banter and bicker, it can verge on the edge of overstaying its welcome. Personally, I'm content to spend as much time as possible in the world of this movie. The atmosphere cultivated is so dense and eerily elegant, especially the forest. That place is enchanting. I get a similar feeling to when I watch Bambi, because while the style is quite different, the encompassing forest environment is just as effective. Not to be fake deep, but in my opinion, Sleeping Beauty took the medium of animation to an entirely new level and proved that animated movies, which were once considered cartoons, could be straight up art. Sleeping Beauty is a fairy tale, which is something Disney was pretty great at tackling at this point, but as usual, they found a way to outdo themselves and make this project impressively unique. No other Disney movie feels the way that Sleeping Beauty does. It has a special type of magic to it that makes it more than fitting that the castle in Disneyland is Sleeping Beauty Castle. I wouldn't have it any other way. And that's the list. Thank you so much for joining me on this ranking of Walt Disney's Silver Age. It was an incredible time for the studio. I don't think they've ever had a single decade of work as strong as the 50s. I've enjoyed talking about these films so much, and I'd love to know your personal rankings for this era. Leave a comment down below, and if you don't want to rank them all, just let me know your favorite Silver Age movie. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting like and subscribe, and if you're interested in more Disney rankings, trivia, or video essays, head over to the Trove to check out videos like that. I've also linked playlists in the description down below. Thanks so much for hanging out, and expect the next video in this series soon. The Bronze Age is up next, so that should be interesting. See you next time.